Estamos aqui para dar voz ao povo, em defesa dos cidadãos, pela dignidade humana. Todos temos deveres, mas também todos temos direitos. Será que existe justiça? Isto é o povo a falar. Olá, muito boa noite e bem-vindos a mais um Isto é o Povo a Falar. O meu nome é João Nuno Pinto e hoje vamos falar da China. Obviamente, a China é uma nação incontornável, aquilo que é um dos líderes mundiais em tantos setores e que também ao longo do tempo tem sofrido por parte da comunicação social ocidental uma visão enviesada daquilo que tem sido a sua realidade e daquilo que tem sido todo o trabalho feito pelo governo chinês. É nosso convidado de hoje o professor Shen Yi, diretor do Centro de Estudos dos BRICS da Universidade de Fudan, em Xangai. Nós vamos fazer este programa via online e, obviamente, vamos fazê-lo em inglês. Você pode depois acompanhar com as nossas legendas. So, Professor Shen Yi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I was telling our viewers and our audience that one of the things that we really need to understand is that the view that we have from China in Western nations is very much based on one-sided view that mainstream media has been giving us. And the truth is that China nowadays is leading in many of the areas that we care about. For instance, in terms of renewable energies, in terms of electric vehicles, in terms of artificial intelligence.
Yes. In short, in quite a long times, China identified itself as a kind of developing countries. Until now, China still insists, and de facto it is a developing country, which means huge number of the peoples, their life standards still need to be improved to the about only 50% of the GDP per capita comparing to the Western countries. And on the other side, in the last several decades, Chinese peoples working hard, try to catch up the latest technological development, especially during the process, we name it open up the reform process since the end of the 1970s. And nowadays, maybe in the last 5 or 10 years, China investment huge on the latest transfer from the traditional energy to the new green energies to deal with these climate change governance issues, sustainable development issues, and lots of globalization issues, which, frankly speaking, firstly was represented or pointed out by the Western countries. China as a developing country, we just learning what we taught by those news. So sometimes Chinese people, we trace back. For example, about 5 or 10 years ago, the journal like Economist, they have a coverage titled something like the heavy pollutions or heavy energy cost from China raise the danger to the world unless China transfer to the green energies, the world will at the risk. And now, I think just in the last few months or few years, the same journal, the coverage is China is overproduced in green energy, and this overproduct of green energies will raise dangerous to the world, and then make Chinese people confused. What the hell shall we do? Neither traditional energy nor new energies. We can do nothing to get your approval.
So,
finding that you just point.
yeah, it's interesting that you point out because I think this week or last week the COP 24 finished. You know, regarding the global climate and everything. And still people talk about China, but from the numbers that I have here, China is responsible of 60% of worldwide renewable installations just last year. 60% of the renewable energies all over the world were China's responsibility. So how can people say that China is culpable of the problems of the climate and also China is doing a better job than anyone else?
Yeah, so here is the most interesting part. According to my understanding, if the world really want to solve these energy problems, we need a very cheap, sustainable green energies. China's capacities to produce all these green energy related productions make it possible. So the proper choice is doing business in normal ways, and every country is doing duty and parts, and then we can jointly cooperation and solve these problems, or at least push forward sustainable solutions for solving these problems. But a little bit pathetic or regret is we got the fingers from the West. They just refuse to launch a positive cooperation. They continue blame China, but cannot even providing an extra sustainable plan to replace China. So they did nothing but blame. Such kind of blame will waste the most important resources, that is timing. This time, the time passing by. We need to speed up with the times so that we can solve these problems without it becoming worse. So from China's side, we wish that the Western countries, if they really concern these climate change issues, if they really believe that the green energy, renewable green energy is the only solution, they need to stop wasting time. Just take actions to push forward practical solution. Of course, you can say that you need to make a more eco, more diversity, more inclusive solutions. It's okay. Let's
For
just
instance,
dialogue.
Professor,
Bargaining.
from my side, imagine that we are in both of us are responsible for the governance in this situation. The only thing that I would add in this case is that I don't know if right now solar panels are the best answer, although solar energy, it's the best answer, we know. But in terms of the view, in terms of the length of the panels, in terms of the technology, I would work and cooperate with China to find a better solution than those big solar panels, but still use solar energy.
You can, how to say that, you cannot build Rome in one night. It means that we maybe need a more practical plan to finding out which is the best format of these renewable green energies. And let's talk about in a practical ways. Maybe till now, either solar energy or the wind or the nuclear energies, all this is the maybe the only options. And during all these options, maybe solar energy has its own shortcoming or problems, but it can be the first step or become the first BRICS. We need to move the first step and then simultaneously we can working out all those whether there's the potentiality for extra or replacement of new allergens comparing to the solar ones. It means that we can have two different attitudes on such kind of governance issues. One attitude is a practical attitude. We did not fighting for a single perfect solution. We just try to solve it step by step in a practical ways, and then transfer these governance issues from a more political or value-oriented questions into a kind of functional policy questions. Then we can dialogue in a practical ways.
Very well. Do you think that...
Another,
yes, please.
I think another is just on the opposite side. You just put too much value or politics in these governance issues, and then you can label it with this very highlight value, which finally leading these problems cannot be solved. And then you just continuing debate and so-called negotiation to solve these unsolvable problems. So we need to change. We need to choose one attitude as our beginning starters. I think we need to become more practical on these things.
And do you think that because of also this Western stance regarding China, do you think that the role of China in this BRICS organization, it's even, how can I say, it's more parallel to the development of China and to the place that China occupies in the world?
No, I think that's the most interesting part. It's not China or Russia or India or Brazil or any original members of these BRICS institutions or regimes produce this term. It's Goldman Sachs create this term. The main reason is try to sell productions, then sovereignty debit, a kind of financial production produced by Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs introduced a lot of such kind of terms, but only BRICS transfer into kind of international regimes or mechanisms. And to China, in quite a long times, China very carefully, cautiously, only focusing on international economy governance. They don't talking about global governance. They're talking about global economic governance, and they try not to touch other geopolitical issues. It's not until United States taking a very harsh, hawkish attitude to focusing on China and to coercive China, to threaten China's core interest. Then China make a cautious change of its attitude and policies in the BRICS framework. The BRICS countries, they try to have their BRICS voice. And please trust me, because the BRICS countries included Brazil, India, and South Africa, BRICS can never, ever become a so-called anti-West mechanisms or a new version of the Warsaw Pact or so on. Because no, this country, including China and Russia, tried to take a so-called anti-West foreign policy. What they want, they try to push forward a kind of moderate, cautious, positive reform of international institutions or regimes. And the main purpose is to protect their core interests for development, for survival, not compete with the United States.
That takes us also for something that has just happened a couple of weeks ago. It's the American elections. Obviously, we all know that Trump, in his first mandate, imposed the tariffs on Chinese products. But also during the Biden administration, those tariffs were not taken away. But somehow, will it be better for China to deal with Trump administration or with a Biden administration?
At the beginning, when Trump took office, we wish Trump become an extra of U.S. president. And we wish when Biden takes the office, he can make that positive changes happen. And we find that it's mission impossible. So nowadays, we just did not depend on which the single president will change this Sino-US relationship. The first. And the second, actually, tariff on China's export to the United States is meaningless and useless. It's a very basic economic principles according to international trade series, which was introduced by United Kingdom guys like Adam Smith or David Ligatus in the early 19th or 18th centuries. Free trade is the only choice. But the only question is whether the country is strong enough to share, to can make sure they can win this competition in a free trade market. If you go back to U.S. trade history, when United States is weak, they prefer tariff to protect its weak industry. When it grow up, especially after the end of Second World War, the United States want to produce WTO. And the main purpose of WTO is to ensure the zero tariff. Because they don't get the WTO, they have the GATT, the GATT. And during this GATT, there's a 5 round of discussion to decrease, to cut off the tariffs issues. Now United States go to its own opposite side. It means that United States believe it's so weak. It don't believe it has enough capacities to win China in this free trade competition. They use tariff as a weapon. But tariff is tax. Institutions like Peterson International Economic Institutions or the International Trade Commissions of the United States already produced their report in the past several years. All these Trump tariff become a consumer tax to United States people. Biden had a choice. If he removed this tariff when he takes the office, maybe he can change the final result of 2024 president elections because it will leading to the decrease of inflation of normal productions and foods for normal U.S. peoples, which has very important element and affect the final result of these elections. Nowadays, Trump said that he will retake this tariff. He will get nothing, but only the things worse. But we also need to remember Trump is quite good at bluffing. He just understanding the art of conflicts, a book written by Thomas Schelling in the 1950s. You know, in the game, the games of chicken, one strategy is pretend to be reckless. And you say that you are uncertainty. you are crazy man. And then you launch psychological threat or deterrence to your opponent. Then you can bluffing him. It's kind of strategy and tactics. But nowadays, since the Trump, it's the second time, the same tactics will not take effective to China. And also this tactic did not works very well in the first terms. We can only get a highly uncertainty Sino-US relationship, which no one will be the winner. And frankly speaking, United States will lose more.
Yeah, because if we look at China 4 years after Biden, China economy is strong, although it didn't grow as much as was projected. Many of the China companies are leading in their own areas. So actually, if somebody is going to lose, it will always be American consumers, and let me say also European consumers that will not have access to the best prices of the highly and high quality Chinese products.
European consumers could also be the winner. It's not necessary that European consumers become the losers. The only reason the European consumers become the loser is those a minority group of European politicians make a stupid choice. They take a wrong strategy. The European Union has a very practical models to push forward sustainable economic development. It means the EU need to take a real independent diplomacy or foreign strategies to United States. And then it take a more smarter positions among United States, Russia, and China. Frankly speaking, when Merkel took office in Germany, he make a very smart example. Germany can get cheap energy from Russia. Germany has advantage in these latest industry technologies, and China providing a German production friend market. And then Germany become rich, got profits during the international trade. The same could happen in today's world. If European Union make a smart choice, launch a more practical, cooperative policies with China, European Union, their consumers can become the winner, not the loser.
I understand,
Productions
Professor.
from China side and help European Union as lost.
We do understand, Professor, but for instance, when you have major players in the automotive sector like BMW and others begging almost European Union not to put pressure on electric vehicles from China because that pressure will be felt also in China where their production is, what can we do?
Just to do it. The European government needs to understand that the answer is written in your textbook. You should not use this tariff or the tax tools to counter the latest development of technology. What you should do, cooperate with China's factory, investment on your own industry, rebuilding your technical capacities, and take advantages of your industry heritages. Please remember, European Union country is, was, and still are and should be developed countries, especially in the industrial areas like electronic vehicle productions. You still have the time. Choose a smart policies. This policy should be initiative and industry friendly policy, and stop wasting your times, and then cooperate with China,
Yes, Professor.
especially with China's electronic vehicle industry and these factories.
Yes, it's true. But talking, for instance, from a Portuguese standpoint, here I am, a Portuguese citizen amongst many others. But actually, our governance and our government decisions are also limited by what European community say. For instance, I believe it was in Portugal, one of the first nations that take Huawei out of the 5G out of the 5G development plan.
It's a very regret. Actually, Huawei is the best choice. If you take the Huawei away from the market, and also definitely you will refuse ZTE, another Chinese firms leading on these 5G areas. And the only thing you can have is Ericsson, Nokia, but according to my understandings, their production is more expensive, less efficiency. So finally, if it happens continually, countries like Portuguese who refuse Huawei infrastructures or those 5G infrastructures from China side, de facto it will become cannot catch up this 5G development of technologies, and the infrastructures will be slower comparing to those developing countries, which is very friend and open embracement to Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE. That's the a kind of situation make Chinese people feel very confused and regret because it did not bring real benefits to Portuguese itself. Mm-hmm. But frankly speaking, it's your domestic policies. According to Chinese habit and history, we hesitate to launch kind of intervention to your domestic policies. And it's maybe the Portuguese peoples, normal peoples, they need to find out, have a proper thinkings, and maybe some smart enough politicians or so-called politician elites inside your countries need to make a decision. They need to voice out the truth and helping to make how to say a reform of this policy. Try
Yes,
to
Professor,
remove
but
this wrong decision.
there are not many TV channels interviewing people like you or Pascal Coppens or Bernardo Mendia or Fernanda Ilhéu, which are people that know the reality of China and always are trying to give us a point of cooperation in China instead of competition. Competition would not be bad, but what we are seeing is combat against China, which is not a benefit against for any of us.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a very important point. That's information or the media's function. It's very interesting because the mainstream Western media is always concerned about so-called disinformation and misinformations transfer or spread in the new cyberspace. And then these new medias will launch some threat towards so-called electronic election security and so on. But the real challenge is whether the Western medias can have enough capacities to break its own stereotyped framework to deliver information from China. and help people to build a better understanding on China. So maybe we can only depend on responsible media persons like hoster like yourself. I cannot say more, but nowadays China already changed its visa policy. It become more and more open to those countries. In that list, you will enjoy about more than 100 hours visa-free travels to China. Every guys, you have these interesting. You can go to China and record and see by your own eyes. And of course, you're highly welcomed to share and spread what you see, all these real information and real sites in China. And of course, from Chinese side, we need to encourage more people uh, to accept the interviews, to providing the information, so that we can encourage the free flow of true and effective information, which can leading to a better comprehensive understanding of what the reality of the truth inside
In
China.
China. And this
And I
is
think if more people got this, I wish
yes, and this is very
that
important
thing
what
will change.
Professor, what you are saying right now, because for many years, China and people that know China's reality were not really open to talk about it in the media. So right now, not just because of the social networks, but also because of some TV channels or people like you that actually are open enough to talk into Western media. And this is very important for us because for many, many years, China was so secretive that we had to believe in everything anyone said about China.
It's time passing by. You see, of course, I said at the beginning, China is a developing country. China is also learning how to dialogue and communicate with the world. I need time to finding appropriate ways. And of course, nowadays, maybe it's a very important timing and also very proper timing that we working toward each other. China side become more open, more transparent, and they encourage more people to dialogue and communicate with foreign countries. And you guys are welcome to China. See, record, and transfer those truths and reality, what really happened inside China. And with the encourage the efforts from both of us, we can improvement and launch a better understanding of China. And for China have a better understanding of the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Let's go back to some of the answers that China and the China market give, and also China consumers, which is very important. From a few months until now, especially European Union has been talking about decoupling, saying that European companies should decouple from China or Chinese companies. And the truth is that the answer that China gives and China consumer gives, it's the other way around. They are starting to decouple from us, and you don't see a decrease on the quality of the products of Chinese factories. And you see it also in price and quality, for instance.
I don't know what really happened, but I can clearly say China did not want to decouple either with the United States or with European Union. The first. And the second, we have to understand that market, just like water, it's full of flexibility and resilience. If European unions, all those countries like United States, they raise tariff toward those productions directly, produced in China and export to European unions, then the trade will change. It will turn to another countries or another locations will not be affected by this tariff, and then exported to European Union from that new locations. So generally speaking, if European Union really did decouple with China, you will finding that the total deficit, not only the deficit between European Union and China, the total deficit of import and export will be decreased. Otherwise, if the total amount of this deficit did not change, or even it increase, just like what happened in the United States, it only means that all those productions go to its new locations, and then such kind of decoupling, you can name it psychological decoupling. Nowadays, inside China, we have a joke. It really happened because a short video, which is taken in the first Trump teams, a reporter joined a MAGA conference, asked a guy with a red hat, Trump make United States way, America great again. Say, what are you fighting for? He said that we're fighting for the threat produced by the productions made in China. And then he raised a lot of reasons. And then the reporter said, your hat is nice. Where it produced? He said, I don't know. And then and take off his and say that it's made in PRC. And the report asked, what does PRC mean? He said, anyway, it's not China. That's what I mean, psychological decoupling.
Yes. PRC,
the only
Republic of
they
China.
feel PTSD is made in China. And we use another name, PRC. They feel cool down. Okay, we decouple with China. Okay,
and Professor, another thing that we don't really understand is that obviously China would love to cooperate, but since they feel that many of these European and the United States are not willing to cooperate, we already see that China is creating a new trend, which is made in China, by China, for China. And this is very important because one of the things that happened with consumers in China is that even young generations are looking for Chinese brands.
How to say that? There's two reasons. The first, you have to admit that the industry, all those brands, also experience its own development, from small to bigger, from weak to strong. And if they become strong enough, they have the capacities to compete with these foreign imported brands or productions in China's own domestic markets. And then if they are competitive enough, definitely they can win during this free market economy competition. That's free market means. And also on the other side, those decoupling threats produced from United States or European unions make China some kind of, say, preventive defense actions.
Yeah.
So it's used this, so there's produced in China, for China, and by China. Last but not least, China never seeking to close the door. I think a more popular strategies for those China's enterprise is to launch internationalization or the second round of globalization of its production chain so that it can bypassing or defective those so-called decoupling or de-risk policies produced by European Unions or United States, and so that they can produce these goods in more safety locations and continue its international trade with European Unions. And fourth, nowadays the central government encourage the municipal government in all provinces to become more open to foreign brands and foreign productions. They organized Import Expo in Shanghai, which encouraged the foreign countries to export their productions to China. All those municipal and the local governments are encouraged to fighting for absorb more foreign investment, to invest inside China, to export to China, and they will become their KPI during their annual report. So I think that maybe you will find some fragmented information say that China is doing something that for Chinese, by Chinese, and in China, but just a kind of very defensive actions
Yeah,
as a
Professor.
very natural result of this
I
threat.
do understand, because one of the things that China is doing also is find new markets for their products and their brands. And let me give a comparison. Imagine that you have a girlfriend, and that girlfriend of yours every day is telling you that she's leaving you. She doesn't leave you, but I'm leaving you, I'm leaving you, I'm leaving you. One of these days she will leave. So what you do, you prepare yourself for the future. Start looking at other women. I'm sorry to give this comparison, but it's almost like this, no?
Happy wife, happy life. We try to make this relationship more sustainable. So, but frankly speaking, for China side, we just prepare. We prepare for the worst scenario, but we are fighting for the best scenario.
Okay, let me give you another answer that Chinese companies also are giving, which is the supply chain security. Many of the Chinese companies they are seeing that European and international factories are struggling. So what they are doing is they are creating the supply chain almost around their main factories, so they don't depend so much on what can happen without being their responsibility to European or American companies.
I think more factories or industry I met inside China in the past 3 years. The most interesting is focusing on proper investment locations, either in United States or in Europe. They prefer to investment in Europe or in United States so that they can bypass this decoupling and the de-risk policies. The only concern is whether these European countries welcome such kind of investment. They concern whether their investment in European unions can be safeguarded by the local law according to the very basic general free market competition principles. So that's they want. And, for those entrepreneurs inside China during this electronic vehicle industries and so on, they are fighting for to make their exporting to European Union more safer. It may be the last choice let's say that I decided I will never ever trade with European Unions because Europe is good market and doing business in your market make money and profits, and they are companies and they're fighting for their own profits.
Yeah, and also our companies, for instance, the BMW, 25% of their revenue is also Chinese market, so they are not interested in this type of situations. We are in the last 4 minutes of our conversation. I want to talk a little bit about something that really impresses me, which is China also is betting on school and teaching and giving the young generations the best possible outcome for them also. That is why, for instance, I think it's in Beijing, in 400 kilometers of area, there are more or less 30 universities.
You must go to Haiding. That district is famous for host so many universities. Yes, inside China, according to our history and cultural background, we focusing on the investment on education, and we believe that accept high quality education is the only way and help people to improvement its life. But also nowadays we are fighting for our improvement on these education systems, in which that try to ensure those high quality education resources can be distributed in a more equal ways so that enough people will have the equal possibilities to accept these high quality educations and then make that possible to change their lives after they accept these high quality education or trainings. They have enough knowledge and capacities to change their lives.
So, and finally, Professor, looking at the last 50, 60 years of China, should Chinese people be proud of the road that have been built until now?
Yes, definitely. During that road, that Chinese people make huge amount of sacrifice and also got huge amount of success. They deserve to be, definitely they have the right to feel proud for themselves. And if they can continue, if we can continue the correct right directions in the last 5, 10 or more years, and not only China, but also we can contribute more positives to the world.
Professor Shen Yi, thank you so much for having us, and I hope this is the first of many programs that we can make with you, and maybe one day in Shanghai, who knows, maybe we can go there, and we'll be more than pleased to talk to you again. Thank you so much for
My
your
pleasure.
time. E obrigado a si
Thank you
também
very
que
much.
nos acompanhou em mais um Isto é o Povo a Falar, desta vez especial, a abordar uma vez mais a China e as questões relacionadas com a China. Estivemos a conversar com o professor Shen Yi, que é diretor do Centro de Estudos dos BRICS da Universidade de Fudan, em Xangai. Obviamente, olhar para as coisas da perspectiva chinesa acaba por ser importante também para enquadrarmos melhor a nossa opinião. Resta-me dizer que pode ver este programa também, rever no YouTube, indo lá e subscrevendo o canal de YouTube. Resta-me agradecer-lhe, desejar-lhe uma ótima noite e já sabe que amanhã vamos estar de volta para mais um programa às 23 horas, ok? Então, o resto, boa noite, até amanhã e muito obrigado.